the shadow of one of England's greatest churches, the country's religious leaders. Just across Parliament Square from an attack that was, we can only presume, intended to divide people of different faiths.
No person and no event will drive a wedge between us. Together, we will prevail.
I have witnessed a tremendous feeling of support from the British people in the last few days. Indeed, as we come together at this difficult time, London is united against the face of terror and extremism.
Warm words, warm gestures, but do they really capture the mood of this city?
To Christians, to Anglicans who sense a great emotion of anger, that is appropriate when the innocent are killed. But it is not appropriate to be angry at a whole category of people, but simply at one person.
The European Union is holding a special summit in Rome today to mark the bloc's 60th anniversary. And many EU officials are now arriving at the Palace of the Conservatives, where the official celebrations are being staged. But Brexit, Euroscepticism and migration are somewhat undermining the bloc's unity, as Peter Oliver now reports.
Anyone that matters is right here in the Eternal City for the 60th anniversary of the signing of the Treaty of Rome. It's the document that essentially brought into being the modern European Union.
We have common interests and common responsibilities.
Because I'm truly devoted to united Europe.
But there are a few things that could spoil the party. It was supposed to be the single monetary unifier across Europe, and it's becoming one of the most divisive things ever. In France, they're openly debating about getting rid of it and going back to the franc. Whereas here in Italy, Beppe Grillo's five-star movement are in a similar vein as well. Right now, I'm in Italy. Over there, it's the Vatican. I know, this one doesn't really count. However, freedom of movement across borders is part of the lifeblood of the European Union.
The fundamental rules of the European Union, which is non-discrimination and the freedom of movement.
The movement, free movement of people is still one of the pillars in the four freedoms.
However, anti-establishment parties would rather dance on its grave, and they're on the rise across Europe. A desire to take control of borders is one of the reasons why the United Kingdom declined an invitation to take part in this 60th anniversary bash.
I set out a plan that shows a vision for prosperous, tolerant and independent, truly global Britain.
Which thirdly brings us to Brexit, or who's nexit. As it stands in France, Marine Le Pen could be the next president, and she's promised a Frexit. So it begs the question, when it comes to the next anniversary of the Treaty of Rome, just how many other nations will be attending?
According to NBC News, Russian President Vladimir Putin made his preferences in the French presidential election clear Friday by hosting far-right candidate Marine Le Pen at the Kremlin. During the meeting with the National Front leader, Putin praised Le Pen, saying she represents part of a quickly developing spectrum of European political forces. Le Pen's anti-immigration and anti-EU platform appeals to the Kremlin, which is postured as a defender of conservative national values against Western globalization. Le Pen also has called for strong security ties with Moscow to jointly combat radical Islamic groups. She promised to work to repeal the EU sanctions on Moscow over its annexation of Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula, and she pledged to recognize Crimea as part of Russia if elected. The Russian state-owned news website called Sputnik has applied for a White House hard pass and is seeking membership in the White House Foreign Press Group. Sputnik would be part of a rotating group of roughly 22 overseas outlets following President Donald Trump, along with pool reporters from American news outlets. Andrew Feinberg, Sputnik's White House correspondent, has been in talks with the WAFBG head, Philip Crowther, who said that if Feinberg and Sputnik complete the boilerplate criteria for being a member of the press group, there shouldn't be any reason they wouldn't join.
Reuters reports that the United States has imposed sanctions on 30 foreign companies or individuals for transferring sensitive technology to Iran for its missile program or for violating export controls on Iran, North Korea, and Syria, the State Department said on Friday. 11 companies or individuals from China, North Korea, or the United Arab Emirates were sanctioned for technology transfers that could boost Tehran's ballistic missile program, the State Department said in a statement. 19 entities or individuals were sanctioned for other violations under the Iran, North Korea, and Syria Non-Proliferation Act, it said. They are believed to have transferred or acquired sensitive technology that could contribute to development of weapons of mass destruction.
Several U.S. stealth fighter jets took part in a precision bombing drill over the Korean peninsula this week. U.S. military officials say around 6 to 8 F-35B jets from an airbase in Japan took part in the Korean Marine Exchange Program. The program is a joint exercise between South Korean and U.S. Marines. Officials say the jets engaged in precision bombing training and other exercises before returning to their base. It marks the first time that F-35Bs have conducted a precision bombing drill in South Korea. The timing of the drill is notable as there are growing concerns North Korea could conduct a sixth nuclear test in the coming days.
According to the State Department, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson will attend a NATO meeting at the end of the month. The announcement comes after previous mixed signals on whether he would attend, which sparked alarm among some allies. Officials said Monday that Tillerson would skip what would have been his first official meeting of NATO countries' diplomats. That meeting would have been scheduled for April 5th and 6th. The Secretary's trip to Russia later in April was also confirmed.
Egypt's state-owned paper, Al-Ahram, announced Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi will meet with President Donald Trump on April 3rd. The White House confirmed that Sisi accepted the invitation Trump extended to him, days after his inauguration. The meeting will be al-Sisi's first visit to Washington since being elected president in 2014. Sisi and Trump first met back in September on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly. Trump said their meeting had good chemistry. Sisi is a general-turned-politician and said Trump would, without a doubt, make a strong leader.
A group of insurers that paid huge damages to businesses destroyed due to the September 11 attacks in the U.S. in 2001 have filed a $6 billion lawsuit against Saudi Arabia. The insurers accused Saudi Arabia of helping al-Qaeda terrorists carry out the attacks by providing them with material support, including funding. The lawsuit is one of the 7 lodged at Manhattan Court against Saudi Arabia over the 9/11 attacks. One of the complaints is launched by families of victims of the attack. They also accused Riyadh of helping terrorists, saying that the Saudis trained terrorists in Afghanistan and worked with hijackers before the 2001 attacks. The legal headache for Saudi Arabia comes after the U.S. Congress approved a law that removed the ban on such lawsuits.
Gunmen have killed a senior Hamas official in the Gaza Strip. Mazen Fakar was one of the more than 1,000 Palestinians exchanged for an imprisoned Israeli soldier in 2011. He was serving a life sentence for organising a suicide bombing that killed 9 people in Israel in 2002. Hamas is blaming Israel for the killing.
This is Jobar, a suburb of Damascus. Syrian army soldiers say they've recaptured all the positions they'd lost earlier in the week in a rebel assault in the north of the district of the Syrian capital. Soldiers can be seen celebrating on the streets. They're chanting God, Syria and Bashar, a reference to the Syrian president Bashar al-Assad. Locals watch from their windows. The fighting has underscored the bleak prospects for a fresh round of UN talks.
Hence our expectation and the strong suggestion to the guarantors of the Astana process that they do retake the situation in hand and that hopefully there will be new Astana meeting as soon as possible in order to control the situation, which at the moment is worrisome.
3 rounds of ceasefire talks in Astana have not managed to peg the fighting. This week's rebel offensive in government-held areas around Damascus and near Hama city is the biggest in months.
Turkey joining an unhappy chorus of countries slamming this week's airline electronics ban. The US rolling out new measures banning laptops and large devices and plane cabins on flights from several Middle Eastern and North African countries. Britain quickly following suit, prompted by reports that militant groups want to smuggle explosives inside the devices. Istanbul's Ataturk Airport, one of the locations on the list. Turkey's Transport Minister Ahmet Arslan says the ban should be implemented in other places as well, so it's not creating unfair competition. Going on to question why a terrorist wouldn't do the same from a European airport. Another impacted country, Tunisia, summoning the British ambassador to protest against the decision, labelling it unjustified. The ban coming into effect on Saturday. Airlines left scrambling to mitigate its impact. Some, including Emirates and Turkish Airlines, introducing a service letting customers use laptops and tablets until they board flights. Then the devices packed away by airport officials at the gate. Many also touting free Wi-Fi and better in-flight connectivity. Royal Jordanian taking a tongue-in-cheek approach, listing meditating or reclaiming territory on your armrest as a way to pass the time.
It's the most diverse city in the Netherlands, but if you look closer, there's Turkish culture at every turn. And the answer why is easy. Turks make up the second largest population in Rotterdam. And while many say they're Dutch too, most will tell you their allegiance lies back home.
I've been living in Holland for 14 years. I really believe in Erdogan. He's not like the previous Turkish leaders. Some people criticize Erdogan, but it's because of Erdogan's support that we are able to walk so freely down the Dutch streets.
Suzanne Ozen's yes vote on Turkey's upcoming referendum isn't to expand Erdogan's presidential powers, it's for the president himself. That sense of loyalty dates back to the first generation who immigrated in the 60s. Turkey was suffering from high unemployment, and the Netherlands needed workers.
Of course I'm going to say yes. Why would I want Turkey to fall apart? I don't want to see the Turkish people weak.
And even though the following generations have managed to preserve Turkey's culture and national pride, not everyone believes a yes vote is the right decision for the country's future.
I'm voting no. The path that Turkey is going down is not good. If it continues this way, there will be no Turkey anymore. It will break into pieces. We have been following the path of Atatürk's Democratic Republic. And as a supporter of that republic, I am saying no.
Venezuela is out of food, out of medicine, and now running out of gas.
I can't find gas anywhere. There are several gas stations closing due to fuel shortages, and there is fuel, there are long queues. And this is a petrol-producing country. I don't know where this is going.
There's a shortage, a gas shortage. I don't know exactly what is happening because I do not know, but there is no fuel in any of the stations.
Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves, and for years it's been selling its citizens the world's cheapest gasoline. But the country mainly pumps an extra heavy grade of oil that has to be mixed with lighter crude, which is imported from abroad in order to be refined. Now international suppliers are holding back imports of this lighter crude because of unpaid debt, leaving gas stations in the capital Caracas and several other cities with no supplies. According to Reuters, the gasoline shortage around the country has been made worse by an increase in fuel exports to foreign allies. It's not just gasoline that Venezuela is running out of these days. President Nicolas Maduro is now turning to the United Nations for help to boost the country's drastically low supply of medicine.
I have asked for support from the United Nations to address the economic and social wounds that have hit our people because of the economic war and the fall in oil prices, namely to regulate the whole issue of medicines, because the United Nations has the most advanced and complete plans in the world.
Venezuela is suffering chronic shortages of goods and products from milk and bread to antibiotics, a situation that forces people to spend entire days waiting in long lines at supermarkets. Others buy food on the black market at steep prices. Maduro says the shortages are a result of an economic war waged by the opposition and the business elite. Critics say the government is to blame for persisting with failed policies of price and currency controls. But whatever the reason, drivers are leaving gas stations with empty tanks and empty stomachs.
A Mexican journalist was shot and killed this week in the northern state of Chihuahua. Miroslava Breach was shot 8 times leaving her home on Thursday and died on her way to the hospital. RT's Anya Parampil tells us the news punctuates a gruesome week for Mexico. Miroslava Breach is at least the 3rd Mexican journalist to be killed this month alone, solidifying Mexico as one of the deadliest places on earth for journalists. On Sunday, editorial director for the El Politico magazine, Ricardo Monluí Cabrera, was killed instantly when 2 unidentified gunmen opened fire on him as he returned to his car following breakfast with his wife and son. The 30-year veteran reporter wrote a regular column covering local politics. He was also the spokesperson for the National Union of Sugarcane Producers and president of Cordoba's Local Journalists Association. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, 48 reporters were killed in Mexico last year, with 72 killed in 2015. Also in Veracruz this week, investigators discovered 47 skulls. That was in addition to 250 uncovered just a few days before. The skulls were found in a 120 square meter area consisting of 8 unmarked mass graves reportedly used by cartels. Human rights activist Robert Jareski, who also happens to be co-coordinator of the Friends of Brad Will, an American journalist killed covering Mexico in 2006, says these deaths were preventable.
The role of the U.S. over the last almost 10 years of supporting Plan Mexico has been to pretend that the issue is the cartels and to provide political cover for the Mexican elite and their security forces that are responsible for the overwhelming number of disappearances and murders and that are not being held to account. You know, the governor of Veracruz now is on the run. But we knew 10 years ago when our friend Brad Will was murdered that it was the Mexican police chief and the Mexican mayor in the majority party, the PAN in Oaxaca, that was responsible for his murder. And the American government knew it as well, and yet it provided weapons to the same political party and provided political cover for their expansion of the drug war.
If you go to the DC Police Department's Twitter page, you'll notice a ton of posts about people who've gone missing, and that the majority of those people are minorities. According to department statistics, more than 750 people have gone missing in DC since the start of the year, and more than 500 cases involve juveniles. The department has said there isn't an uptick in missing person cases, and over the last few years there's been a decline. But that doesn't seem to give solace to a community that feels cases of missing children, specifically black girls, go underreported.
Any child gone missing, it should be known that there's a possibility this child could be hurt.
DC Police Youth and Family Services Commander Chanel Dickerson says many of those children who've gone missing walked away voluntarily and have since been found. But she adds there are deeper issues that need to be explored.
And we need to get to the bottom of why these young people feel that there's no other alternative but to leave home. And when they leave home, there's a danger that they could be victimized, mental health issues. And then my biggest concern is they're not going to school.
Some Americans were relieved, others bubbled with frustration, but nearly all of them resigned themselves to the prospect that the latest chapter in the never-ending debate over health care would not be the last. The withdrawal of the Republican-sponsored health bill in the face of likely defeat in the U.S. House seemed to ensure the deep divisions over the Affordable Care Act would continue. As news spread, Americans fell back into similar spots. They were either happy to see a Democratic effort live another day, or ready to watch Republicans regroup and try to follow through with their repeal Obamacare promises. If the GOP healthcare bill was passed, it would have taken away funding from national health organization Planned Parenthood. On Friday, the organization had a temporary reprieve from their worries. However, the threat isn't over. During a phone interview, Chris Charbonneau, chief executive of Planned Parenthood of the Great Northwest and the Hawaiian Island, said, "It's one good night's sleep, and then we have to see what they are going to cook up." He continued to say, they're trying to find some vehicle that they could hook some Planned Parenthood defunding to.
Amazon Prime Air said Thursday it shipped its first package out in public in the U.S. this week, marking another small step toward its goal of filling the skies with delivery drones. The e-commerce giant's drone delivery arm has been testing flights for years, though due to federal regulations, hasn't undertaken any U.S. flights outside of its private land until now. On Monday, an autonomous drone delivered several bottles of sunscreen, about 4 pounds in all, to Mars 2017, an Amazon-hosted conference in Palm Springs, Florida. The entire flight took place in the controlled airspace of the Palm Springs airport.
If you use the delivery service DoorDash, your next order could be delivered by a robot. In Redwood City, California, DoorDash is running a pilot program using Starship robots to deliver restaurant food to customers. Each Starship robot is equipped with ultrasonic sensors and 9 cameras for object detection. The robots are designed to travel on sidewalks and they can move up to 10 miles per hour, but are limited to 4 miles per hour in pedestrian areas. When an order is placed, the robot navigates itself to the restaurant, where the food is placed inside the robot's container.
Geek.com reports that researchers at the University of Rochester have developed an artificial intelligence system that can identify coded hate speech online. In early 2016, Google unveiled tech incubator Jigsaw with the intention of substantially reducing online hate and harassment. But the plan backfired when trolls responded with the Operation Google campaign, which replaces racial slurs with names of technology brands and products. Google, for example, refers to black people, while fellow search engines Yahoo and Bing allude to Mexicans and Asians, and Jewish folk are called Skypes. The idea was to force Google to censor its own websites by making the common word synonymous with bigotry. Now, analysts at New York's University of Rochester are fighting back with an AI of their own. Their AI takes users' key topics and hashtags to identify hateful tweets even when explicit hate speech is coded. If the thought of your internet browsing history and habits being put up for sale without your consent sounds like a scary thought, it could become a reality. According to NBC News, the Senate passed a joint resolution on Thursday, which bars the Federal Communications Commission from enforcing rules passed last year that would ban internet, cable, and mobile providers from selling your data without your consent. So how do you keep your internet activities private? Robert Siciliano is CEO of IDTheftSecurity.com. He told NBC News the best way to protect yourself is by installing a VPN. That's a virtual private network. Siciliano also advises taking advantage of any incognito or other private browsing technologies. In Google Chrome, you can do this by clicking the icon in the right-hand corner showing 3 lines, then opening a new window to browse anonymously. While Thursday's vote doesn't mean there are any immediate changes, the measure has been slammed by online privacy advocates.